In this module, we'll talk about certain considerations that have to be kept in mind while compiling a regional dictionary of English. To start with, the aim of a regional dictionary of English is to serve the average educated speaker of English in that community or countries in that region. Secondly, the dictionary should comprise not only new entries, the entries which have emerged or the words which have emerged as a result of the contact between the English language and regional languages, or which are the result of the innovative use of English by the people of different regions, but should also represent old entries but with a regional perspective. So, if the old entries have adopted a new perspective, a new regional perspective, the regional dictionary should also talk about them or should also represent them. Now, as far as the pronunciation is concerned, these dictionaries may use a phonemic pronunciation system, which enables the users of such a dictionary to pronounce words as recommended by their own variety. So they may not need to read the pronunciation of the words as they are pronounced in, let's say, Native American or British English or any native English, but the phonemic system should also represent the sounds which are recommended by or which are used by their own variety. For example, if we take a look at this list of entries from the New Zealand Oxford Dictionary, we can see that certain sounds are different from how the same words are pronounced, let's say in American or British English. For example, the last entry, mouth, is represented as mouth. Similarly, voice is represented here as voice, face as face. So all these sounds represent New Zealand English and not American or British English. And that is what should be done when a regional dictionary is prepared for any other country, for example, an Asian country, a South Asian country, or Southeast Asian country. The sources of items to be included can comprise published materials, and this may include fiction, non-fiction, and also newspaper writings. A published material is a more reliable source of the emerging variety, and also the frequency of use can be determined with more certainty in case of published material. The frequency of use, if it is to be taken by the way people speak or the frequency of the use of certain words, it may not be very reliable, because you can't be sure whether the person who has just used a word, it is an individual use, or whether the whole community is demonstrating this kind of a use. Similarly, another criterion is that the entry must genuinely represent the variety from which that entry is drawn from. For example, if an entry is drawn from the work of an author, the entry should completely represent or genuinely represent the variety from which the author belongs, or the variety which the author speaks. So the entry should genuinely represent the varieties from which those entries are drawn. And care must be taken that these entries should not be modifications made for broad international communication. For example, if for the sake of convenience a modification and innovation is made temporarily, one must be very careful in not selecting such an entry. So one must make sure that the frequency of the occurrence of a certain entry is an entry is used frequently enough to be used or to be selected for a regional dictionary. So, along with the frequency of occurrence, use of published material, one can also depend on the users themselves. So there are certain strategies that can be used to confirm familiarity of those entries by native speakers. For example, a survey can be conducted, and the users can be asked about the degree of familiarity that they have with that entry. So this can also be a criterion for selecting a certain word to be used in or to be entered in a dictionary. The familiarity with the users of that variety of English. If a word occurs in a specific text just once, or if, for example, you are using a published material for selecting entries for a regional dictionary, and a word occurs only in that specific text and not in other texts, so that single occurrence or occurrence in a single text is not strong enough evidence for it to be included in a dictionary. So when we say published material, we do not mean even a single occurrence. The frequency of occurrence also has to be kept in mind. Now, the validity of the dictionary can be established if the authority of English language communities in the region is established. For example, for the people, the community for whom the dictionary is being developed, what is their authority as English language users in a particular community? Um, Above all, the users themselves should acknowledge and have confidence in their language. For example, before anyone else, the users themselves should acknowledge that they use a variety of English which is different from British or American English. So users should accept the dictionary as representative of their regional English. So they have to show this confidence in their own English before anyone else, and should acknowledge wholeheartedly that they use a variety of English which is neither American nor British but their own. Um, so according to Butler, cited in Kachu and Nelson, the dictionary has the power to reveal to the people something that they already know but do not acknowledge. So the dictionary has the power to force people to accept that they use a variety of English which is different from American or British English. Not only different, it is a variety of their own. So, a dictionary can force people to acknowledge that they have their own English. They do not speak an English which is American English but different, or which is British English but different, but they do not speak any of these Englishes. They speak an English of their own. So, the English that they speak, they own it. In this way, dictionary has the power to force people to acknowledge a variety of English and also establish that variety at the global level.